Hi, I'm Stephen Screen, and I help nonprofits know what types of stories to tell and when and where to tell them to raise the most money. I was working with Chris Davenport on this year's Nonprofit Storytelling Conference, and we realized that one question comes up again and again and again this year, and that's what types of stories do we tell this year? Because this year is a little different. So I'm going to share with you a framework, a way of thinking about what stories to tell and when to tell them for you this fall. It's going to take just a few minutes. We're going to go deeper into all of this stuff at the conference. But now I think, again, in just a few minutes, I can help you know what types of stories to tell this fall and when to tell them. Okay, let me jump into it. The first thing for you to know is this. Your organization has a big story that you need to be telling your donors. Now, you can think about this as your brand, but I don't really tend to think about it that way. I tend to think about it as sort of a main story that's told to your donors over time. And that main story has 2 points. Number one, is your donor is needed. And number two is that her gift makes a difference. You should be able to, looking at your communications over time, so all your emails, all your appeals, all your events, your website, everything, know two things. Your donor should know and hear two things. Number one, that her gift is needed. And number two, that her gift makes a difference, right? That's sort of the heart of donor-centric fundraising. And you need to be able to have your donor feel that across all your communications. And there are times when you should be telling her these things directly. There should be in appeals where you are saying, donor, your gift is needed today. And for instance, in reporting, you should be able to say, donor, your gift made a difference and here's how. So you want to tell her those things both sort of acutely and writ large across your entire stream of communications. Okay, that's the big story your organization wants to tell. So look at your communications. Are you doing that? Because there are a lot of nonprofits out there who you could look at their website, for instance, and not even know that they have donors, let alone that they need donors. And you want your donor to feel needed. That is a valuable role for her to play, and donors love to feel needed. Okay, next section. Appeals, or you can think of these as asks, because it's really for appeal letters, e-appeals, events, one-to-one asks with major donors. So when you are asking, there's a type of story that you want to tell. Here's how I summarize that type of story. It is an incomplete story. It is not yet finished. In other words, you haven't helped the person yet. You haven't solved the problem yet. Here's another couple of words I throw at this to help kind of define what this story type is. It's an unmet need. It's an unsolved problem. In appeals, what you want to be doing is presenting incomplete stories, unmet needs, unsolved problems, putting those in front of your donors and asking your donors to solve those problems, to meet those needs with a gift today. Now, this immediately makes a lot of nonprofits uncomfortable, but I'm here to tell you that, and I know this through testing data in direct response fundraising for appeals and e-appeals, if this is the type of story you tell, you will be raising more money than if you are telling completed stories, stories where the person has already been helped. There is a place for those stories, and that's going to be in your newsletters, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. But right now, I just want you to know, if you're telling completed stories about people who have already been helped, needs that have already been met, in your appeals, you are raising less money than you could be. So, because that's challenging, and because a lot of organizations say, I don't even know how to do that, Let me give you 3 tips for how to tell incomplete stories, unmet needs, and unsolved problems. Okay, tip number 1. Number 1 is a person who has not yet been helped. This is someone who hasn't entered your programs, but you know about, right? So there are people out there who oftentimes your program folks will know about, but they haven't yet been helped. That's a great place to get a story. But not every organization, not every program has that. So what else do you do? Here's another thing you can do. You can tell the first half of a story of a person you've helped. I hope that makes sense. But you have stories in your bank of stories with the people you've helped, the things that your organization has done, because a lot of organizations don't have people as beneficiaries. So you have completed stories. You can tell the first half of the story where the problem is not yet solved, the need is not yet met. And then just stop the story before you tell the second half. And you can tell the donor that she can help a person like this today. So you haven't told them that they're going to help that person in the story. You say a person like this, a person in this situation. So that's another way. That's the second way that you can be telling these stories of need in your appeals and your e-appeals. And the third way is a way that most organizations haven't run into yet, but it's incredibly powerful. This is a person that you know exists, but you have not yet met them. If you're an organization that helps people in any way, you know there are more people out there today who need help. And you know that a month from now, a week from now, a year from now, some of those people will be coming to you for help. And you know the way their lives are like today. Say you're a person who helps people who are currently in the throes of addiction. You know that they wake up each day thinking, I hope I can find enough heroin to get through the day. You know that their time horizons are incredibly short. You know that they are making decisions that are bad for their long-term health. And so you can, because you are an expert in this, talk about someone who needs help today without naming that person. But because you're an expert, you have the moral authority to talk about those people, knowing that they are going to be helped by your organization. And so you can share that as an example to help show, to illustrate the need to your donor for them to give a gift today. My hope is that those 3 different approaches can help you go find some stories of need, some unsolved problems that you can put in front of your donors. And when you do, you will be so surprised and thrilled by how much money your appeals start raising. Okay, there is another type of story to tell. These are types of stories in your newsletters. This is reporting. This is when you're getting back to a donor and telling and showing her the amazing things that happened because she gave a gift. And here you want to be telling completed stories. Met needs. And solved problems. When you are reporting in your printed newsletter, in your e-newsletter, that's where you want to be sharing these wonderful stories of people you have helped, lives you have changed, problems your organization has solved. That's where to share those completed stories. Because again, if you're sharing those completed stories in your appeals, you are lessening your donor's motivation to give a gift today. You are just sharing stories of success. And if you're only sharing stories of success, it sounds like you've solved other problems. You've taken care of everybody who needs help. And your donor doesn't really need a gift to give a gift today. That's why you want to share those for your newsletters. Excuse me, you want to save those for your newsletters. That's where they're incredibly powerful. That's where you close the loop with a donor where she sees her gift to your organization made a difference. Remember this up here? And now she trusts your organization and is more likely to give again the next time you ask her in an appeal. So these appeals and newsletters really work in tandem with each other. Here are your asks. You're sharing unmet needs, unsolved problems, and you're asking donors to solve them. And then here are your reports, where you're showing and telling donors the incredible impact they had through your organization. Closing the loop, making them trust your organization. And so when you tell these types of stories here and these types of stories here, you create what we call the virtuous circle. And that's where you prove to your donor that her gift made a difference, making her more likely to give to you again. Okay, those are the two main types of stories. Here's 3 ways to tell stories of where you're asking, incomplete stories, unmet needs. Now, as you're working on both of these stories, I want to give you a couple of tips, because what I'm about to say is true for both types of stories. Let me sort of give you a way to think about it. I am looking for a handful of things anytime I'm hearing stories for what's happened at a nonprofit. And the things I'm about to give you are the things that I have found cause the most emotional response from donors. You'll notice, by the way, that there are no big numbers in this list. 38,000 people in Oregon are doing a thing. None of that. And there's no statistics on this list. Here are the things that I am looking for, that I have seen I have the biggest chance of moving a donor's heart to take action today. First and foremost, this is sort of sad to say in our nonprofit world where we are all trying to be nice to each other and help everybody, but you're looking for conflict. You're looking for stories where there is real conflict between what a person wanted to become and did not become. Or a situation a person is in and they are in conflict because they desperately want to leave the situation but can't. Right? You are looking for conflict because conflict is one of the main motivators of human action. I realize that's a bit conceptual, so I'm going to go sort of farther here in the details, and I'm going to round this out a little bit, but you'll really see what I mean. Next, I'm looking for need for help. Most nonprofits, in my experience, hide the need from their donors. They do it by only telling stories of success. So donors don't know how many people out there are experiencing homelessness, who have leukemia but aren't getting the cure and care that they need. The forests that are in danger because of excess logging. Whatever it is your organization works on, whatever problem your organization solves, make sure you're not hiding the problem, hiding the need. So you want to be looking for stories that show the need. When you look for stories that show the need, that is incredibly helpful at illustrating to your donor why she should give a gift today. And I'm very specifically using the word story there because, again, it's not statistics that show the need. It's not numbers that show the need. It's stories that illustrate the need. Okay, next. Before and after. This is one of the most powerful things that you have at your disposal as a storyteller. And it's especially applicable here in newsletters, in your e-news, in one-to-one conversations where you are reporting back to your donor on the good that her donation has made happen. What you're looking for is the distance between a way a thing used to be and a way it is now. A homeless person or a person who was experiencing homeless is now in a stable living situation. A person who was sick is now cured, right? A person who was unable to read can now read. A person who is in a community without arts now has the liveliness of a strong arts community. You're looking for that before and after. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper here, and it's important. The greater the distance between the before and the after, the more powerful the donor's gift is. Let me give you an example. Say a person is on death's door, but a donor's gift will give them the cure and bring them all the way to a completely healthy body and life. That is a really big distance from death's door to a healthy body and life. Let me give you another example. Say a person is sick, but the donor's gift can give them access to health care. That is a very small distance because, for instance, access to health care doesn't even mean that they get health care. It just means that they have access to it. So that is a really tiny distance. You, in your fundraising, want to be finding the examples of what you do that have a big distance between the before and the after. And you want to be emphasizing that distance to your donors. Because remember, your donors are not experts. They don't know as much about this as you do. They don't think about it as often as you do. So it's incumbent on fundraisers to help donors see the big impacts their gifts can have. Even if their gifts don't always have that impact, you need to illustrate it to them. This is one place where your expertise, your organization's expertise actually gets in the way of good fundraising, because you end up internalizing the need, not wanting to talk about the distance between the before and the after, and then hiding the need and hiding the power of what the donor's gift does. So you really want to talk about the before and after, and you really want to talk about the distance. And if you can get good at describing those things, and by the way, your charity does not have to do a life and death thing to have a big distance between your before and after. It can be the darkness of a community without arts, compared to the vibrancy of a community with a thriving arts scene where kids are learning all different types of arts. Okay, you can, right? There's a real difference there. How can you describe that difference in your fundraising? You should be putting the darkness over here that the donor can solve with their gift when in your appeals. And then in your newsletters, you're telling the stories where you're illustrating that difference. Finally, maybe mostly because I'm running out of room here, but you want to be looking for moments. Maybe a better name for this would be moments of change. There are moments where your beneficiaries' lives make a click into a new and better state. Sometimes that's a foster kid throwing a baseball or maybe learning how to hit a baseball with a foster dad for the very first time. And yes, there's a lot of story before and after that, but that moment where that kid did that thing that we all kind of resonate with for the first time is a big moment. Sometimes that moment is the first day of school. Sometimes that moment is the first day of leaving the hospital without having a next appointment set up. Sometimes that moment is reading a chapter book for the first time. Whatever those moments are for your organization, go find them. Share those moments with your donors, because you're doing your donor an incredible favor there. Because you're not asking your donor to understand the whole depth and breadth of your organization. You're not asking your donor to understand everything. You're sharing with your donor a moment that he or she will, bam, immediately understand and resonate with, and is therefore much more interested in doing what you're asking them to do today, or seeing how powerful their gift was. And there's a specific type of moment that I want to mention. It's a first. Anytime someone in your organization does something for the first time, again, that's the first day of school, the first day of hitting a baseball, the first day without cancer, the first day where the forest is no longer threatened, right? Those are really big. And frankly, as a sort of pro tip in your direct response fundraising, anytime you can ask donors to provide the first day of something or the first thing, you'll get incredible response, because donors know there's a real click from a worse state into a better state at those firsts. So you want to be looking for firsts in your fundraising and sharing those with your donors. All right, that's kind of a big framework, right? You got your big story. Make sure your donors know that they're needed and that their gifts make a difference. Here are the type of stories to tell when you're asking. Here are the type of stories to tell when you're reporting. Don't tell these type of stories when you're asking, because if you are, you're raising less money than you could. You are losing donors and losing money if you're telling these stories in your appeals. And if you need help telling these stories in your appeals, here are 3 ways. Boom, boom, boom. Those 3 ways will help you tell great stories, motivating stories that cause donors to take action. And then finally, for all of these stories, look for those little moments, not statistics, not organizational centric stuff about a new program being launched or someone joining the team. This stuff about your beneficiaries. These are the types of stories to tell. And this year we live, it's the year of COVID. What types of COVID stories should you be telling? Well, if COVID is negatively impacting your organization or your beneficiaries, tell these types of stories. What programs are incomplete right now? What things are you unable to do because of COVID? That's a good story to tell. What needs are going unmet because of COVID? Maybe you can't run a particular program. Maybe you do a thing that earns you income, but that is not running this year, so you got a budget shortage. Those are the types of stories to be telling when you're asking for money in the time of COVID. How has COVID negatively affected your organization or your beneficiaries? What's that story that's not yet complete? And then when you're reporting, hopefully you're doing this in the newsletters this fall, you're reporting back on things that have happened in the COVID era. What was going on this spring or summer that was so rough that the donor gave and an amazing thing happened that completed somebody's story, that met some need that was had this year, that solved some problem. If you are telling stories in your reporting from a year ago, they are not relevant. At least most likely they're not relevant. So I, in my reporting, am exclusively trying to focus on completed stories, met needs, solved problems since the first week of March. Okay, I hope all of that is helpful. I know it's a lot of information quickly, and it's only the tip of the iceberg. This year at the Storytelling Conference, we're going to be going deeper into all of these, and I'm so excited for what Chris has done at the conference this year. Here's a sneak peek. Almost every single session is tailored, structured to teach you how to do something that you can use to raise more money right away. You won't have a whole lot of sessions where it's a whole bunch of theory, a whole bunch of information, and you walk away going, that was great, I'm not sure what to do. These sessions are structured so that you learn a thing, then you get to try a thing, and then you can ask questions about the thing so that you walk away knowing what to do in the next days and weeks and able to raise more money. It's an entirely different type of digital conference. I have never seen this before. I can't wait. I'm just so excited for how much value it's going to add. If you're interested, go to nonprofitstorytellingconference.com and sign up. And in the meantime, I hope that all of this is helpful to you. Good luck this fall. There's a lot of money to be raised out there. I think this will help. I think the Nonprofit Storytelling Conference will help. Good luck.